come to Arran, you're inextricably linked to nature. In these waters, we have things called merle, which is a coralline pink seaweed. It's very, very slow growing and extremely vulnerable to bottom fishing methods. We've also got seagrass meadows. So seagrass is an underwater flowering plant, and both merle and seagrass provide habitat for lots and lots of different species. Juvenile fish use seagrass meadows as nursery habitats, and of course you get the bigger fish that come and feed on them, and then the bigger marine megafauna that feed off the larger fish. Things like dolphins and porpoise that everybody loves to see. Other species that we're also protecting by protecting our habitats within the sea are everyone's favourite, the Eurasian otter, which we commonly see around Arran's coastlines. Now, both the otter and the harbour seal are two of Scotland's big five animals. We're lucky enough on Arran to have all five, so look elsewhere in the island for your golden eagle, red deer and red squirrels to see what you might find.
So one of the great projects I've been doing is restoring peatlands high up on the moor above there, where we've got bogs that have been eroded by people digging drainage ditches across the bog. Here you can see sphagnum moss. This is a very special plant as it just grows from the tip here, and then the bottom of the plant decays away to form the peat. So by restoring our upland bogs, what we're doing is trapping carbon from our environment and our atmosphere and storing it for millennia, and that helps us with climate change. It also helps us with flooding, because sphagnum moss, the other thing it can do is hold lots and lots of water. So here is one of the specialist plants that lives on our bogs and our peatlands, and it's called a sundew. This plant gains its nutrients by attracting midges to it. So the midges land on the leaves, and then the leaves curl over it and then start to digest the midge, and that's how it gets its nutrients.
It's a wonderful glen to see the shape that has been made by the glacier, and the part that trees have played, they have come in after the glacier melted. The aspen trees on the cliffs here will probably date from that time. There's old Gaelic poems from the 13th century that describe the forests here as full of nuts and berries and wild pigs, just dripping in a paradise of trees. Now it's a desert. The landscape as it stands is not the way it should be. I've been growing trees from local seed and planting them wherever I could get a bit of ground to do it on. This is an Arran white beam. It's an Arranensis. Very beautiful tree, very rare, one of the rarest in the world. We've planted a few hundred in this glen, and hopefully they'll be safe here for future generations.
I've travelled up quite a bit of the west coast of Scotland. Actually, Arran is one of the best places for actually seeing deer from the roadside. So there's no doubt the deer would have probably have got here at the end of the Ice Age. Whether they walked over the ice to get to the island or whether they swam here, they definitely would appear to have got here on their own devices. So they're a natural wildlife phenomenon. The deer on the island dominate so much of the landscape, and they feed on the flora and fauna that's there. In the right density, they have a positive impact. But if it gets too high, they have a negative impact, and especially if you were trying to regenerate trees or anything like that, it becomes very difficult. The deer are wild animals, and they should be kept as wild animals. Just be a bit careful around the tamer deer rather than the wilder deer, and give them the respect and the distance and let them have their own bit of space.
We're blessed on Arran with these fantastic beaches, and we've got the Arran Coastal Way, which means we can explore the coastlines and we'll see lots and lots of wildlife while we do it. Try and stay below the high tide mark or stick to the path. The reason for that is that we have lots of nesting birds during the breeding season, things like ringed plover, oystercatcher, common gull, and they tend to nest between the high tide mark and the kind of higher bits of the foreshore. So if you stay below the high tide mark or you stick to the path, you're not going to be disturbing them. And of course, keep your dogs on the lead during the breeding season. I'm sat here in front of some harbour seals, sometimes also called common seals, and they like to haul out on the rocks all around the coast of Arran. They do that to do really essential things like digest their food and to molt. And it's really important that they're not disturbed while they're doing that, because otherwise they can get quite out of condition. What tends to happen is we sneak up on them and we try and get as close as we can, and we never know whether we're too close until it's too late, so they slip into the water. If you don't get too close and you do have a set of binoculars, you can see totally natural behaviour. So instead of seeing them watching me, I see them doing things like fighting and farting and wriggling and just being natural seals, which is always a lot of fun.